Welcome everyone to lesson 5.1.2. How can I eliminate fractions in equations? Okay. Today we're going to be working towards fraction busters, and the most important thing that I can teach you about today is this sense of equality as we work inside the number system. Okay. Now in problem 5-10, you have a fair amount, you have a wide strip of graph paper, and we're going to talk about fractions on the left, and then we'll talk about decimals on the right. Okay? When we're dealing with fractions, the most important thing is understanding that when we are comparing fractions, we have to compare equivalent slices of pie. If I tell you for Thanksgiving I ate 6 slices of pie, do you know how much of a pie I ate? Was that a whole? Was that a half? Was that a third? Well, it all depends on how big of a slice of pie I ate. So if I was doing this problem, 1/2 plus 1/8, notice half of the rectangle is shaded, 1/8 of the rectangle is shaded. I cannot say 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 8 is 10, because I don't say 1 plus 1 is 2, and there are 10 boxes. That is not how we do that. Okay? When we are adding fractions, what we need to do is we need to add fractions like this. If I say half is shaded, then I need to shade half of this shape, but I need to have equivalent number of slices of pie. This one has 8, this one has 8, and so now I can accurately add these two. I can say that 1/2 is the same as 4/8. This is how we accurately add fractions. 4/8 plus 1/8 is 5/8. Now, in terms of what you write down, you should pause the video and you should make sure that you have all of this written down. Pause the video now. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about decimals. Okay, decimals are similar to fractions because they're talking about parts of a whole. If I have the decimal 0.2 and 0.02, okay, these are both decimals. This one says 2/10. This one says 2/100. Okay? That means if I were to compare, I need to make sure that I have the same decimal places so that I can compare them. This one says 2 cents. This one says 20 cents. Okay? Because that's how we compare decimals. Okay? You always need to make sure that you have your place value lined up with decimals. I want you to write the sentence. We have to make sure we line up the decimals and place value. We always make sure we line up the decimals and place value. Okay? Now this is just a reminder because this is going to come into play today. So we have 4 problems that we need to solve. Okay? And when we're talking about problems like this, we need to understand parts of a whole. We need to understand how to bust up these fractions. How do we deal with parts of a whole? So I want you to recognize problem letter A has decimals. Ugh, decimals. I don't want to deal with decimals, Mr. McCoy. Well, I notice that they all have tenths of a decimal. Because they all have tenths of a decimal, I want everyone to write a parentheses around it and write a 10 on the outside. Because they all have tenths, I can multiply by 10 and I can end up with 21x plus 6 equals 174. And notice that it has disappeared. No more decimals. They're gone. Now you can go ahead and solve this by doing a side-side flip and a regroup. Pause the video. Okay, problem letter B. I noticed, Mr. McCoy, that in problem A, we made things bigger by multiplying it by 10. Can we go in the reverse direction? Absolutely. I noticed they all are in the hundreds. I could divide each of these by 10. If I divide all of these by 10, 10x plus 25 equals negative 40. This problem is a lot more manageable. You could even say, I want to make this smaller one more time. Divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10. The property of equality. And I have x plus 2.5 equals negative 4. Notice how manageable this equation is, because I've simply divided it down, made the numbers smaller, and this has allowed me to solve this problem in one more step, a side-side flip. Pause the video now. Problem letter C. Okay, we need to remember, how do we undo division? This is back to like lesson 1.2.1. Undoing division. Okay, and I notice right here that I have a divide by 3. Okay, now when we're doing a regroup means divide, but that's because we have the problem like 3x equals 12. And I regroup by doing a division, because the 3 divided by the 3 creates the big giant 1. Okay? So how, if I have a 3 that's already in the bottom, how do I undo that? Well, I need to multiply the top by 3, because that creates the big giant 1. And that's going to mean I'm going to multiply this side by 3. 2x equals 90. Notice that by undoing division, I'm just multiplying, because that's the opposite of multiplication. I'm making it into whole numbers instead of fractions. Okay? Now, you can go ahead and regroup both sides by dividing by 2. Go ahead and find your answer. Pause the video now. Problem letter D. Now notice that we have a divide by 5. And what we need to do is go ahead and get rid of it. Well, how do I get rid of a divide by 5? Well, remember, just like this problem, I need to create that big giant 1. I do that by multiplying by 5. But if I multiply by 5 here, I have to multiply by 5 here, I have to multiply by 5 here. Each one gets multiplied by 5. And notice that my fraction has disappeared. I have busted those fractions. Now, I can go ahead and solve this problem by doing a side-side flip, and that'll be my answer. Pause the video now. All right. In our next problem, we have x over 5 plus x over 3 equals 16. Now what you're going to do is you're going to pause the video and you're going to write these 4 steps down. Pause the video now to copy. Fantastic. Now that you have this problem copied down, the frustrating thing about this problem is there are 2 denominators. So in the previous problem, I multiplied by 5 because that was the denominator. Over here, I multiplied by 3 because that was the denominator. When you have 2 denominators, you have to know what the common denominator is. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to say 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. That's the common denominator. I find it by multiplying those denominators together. That is a quick and easy way. Now, you need to be careful that you always find the least common denominator, otherwise your numbers get really big. So let's go ahead and do step 2. Step 2 says multiply and divide. Let's go ahead and multiply. 15 times x is 15x. 15x divided by 5 is 3x. If I'm going to keep going, times 15 divided by 3 is 5x. 15 times 16 is 240. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this problem off. I'm going to combine like terms. This problem is a combine like terms because they're on the same side. On this side, I have 240. It did not change. Then I'm going to regroup because it's necessary. Divide by 8, divide by 8. X equals 30. Now what you're going to do, you have 3 problems, and you're going to follow these same steps. You're going to find the common denominator. You're going to multiply the top, divide the bottom. If the variables are on the same side, you combine like terms. If they're on opposite sides, you're going to do a side-side flip. And then you're going to do a regroup if necessary. You have 3 problems, A and B, and problem 5-14. Follow these 4 steps, and you will have busted those fractions. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.